Thank you all very much, and good afternoon, Chairman, members of the College Historical Society, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say at the outset what an honour it is to return here to the College Historical Society, both as a former member and a serving Taoiseach, to join what is a really distinguished lineup. I think it's a reflection of the international prestige of the Society that this afternoon we're going to hear from a former President of the European Council, a former President of the European Commission, and a former Secretary General of the European Commission as well, with the meeting chaired by her predecessor, who is also a former EU Ambassador to the United States, and more importantly, a former auditor of this Society. My own time in this Society was a little bit less illustrious. An active member, debater and freshman, I missed out on election to committee by a fraction of a vote. And instead challenged my energies into a different society on campus called Fine Gael. I fear things may have gone downhill from there, but I often wonder how things might have turned out if I'd been elected as a committee member of the Hist and not as chairman of Trinity Young Fine Gael. But I have to say, I learned a lot from my time in the Society. Learned how to construct an argument, learned how to think on my feet, and most importantly, learned the value of listening to opposing points of view and taking them on board and integrating them into the case that I was making. I also learned, I think, which is one of the best skills of debating, having to make the case in favour of an argument you don't actually believe in, which is a great skill and very enjoyable, but actually is probably the best way to understand and then subsequently forensically dissect somebody's argument when you've had to be the one to make it for the initial time. And it was a great Society as well in terms of giving us access to new ideas and new ways of seeing the world. And I've always was encouraged to think differently about my beliefs and helped to provide an intellectual framework as I began my career as an aspiring politician, who, that was not a Freudian slip, but who wanted a career in public service. And in many ways, I think societies and sporting bodies within universities really are what universities are all about, because it isn't just about the course you do, it's about the other things you get involved in and all the different people you meet. And you learn so much more from everything else, I think, in a good college experience than you do just from the course that you study. And today, as you know, we meet in a theatre named after the statesman whose earlier club inspired the founding of the Hist 250 years ago. Burke provided the inspiration and driving spirit in those early days. And we meet on the anniversary of the birth of somebody who also features prominently in the early history, and that is Robert Emmet. Both had very different views and visions of Ireland's role in the world. For Burke, Ireland was an equal part of a larger political system. For Emmet, a Republican, it was about Ireland taking her place as an independent republic among the nations of the world. And so many members of this Society, over 250 years, have made that dying request a reality. Over the years, the Society has been called many things, some not quotable, but has been called a school of oratory, a sphere of ideas, a place where creative minds have been challenged and inspired, and in doing so, it's performed a vital function in the service of our democracy and our society, and its legacy is international as well as national. Every new generation deals with the challenges of what's gone before, and that demands new thinking and new ideas. And that's particularly needed today when we think about the future of the European Union, and indeed Europe itself, which of course is more than the European Union. The ideals that gave birth to United Europe, freedom, both economic and freedom of the individual, peace, prosperity, democracy, free trade, the rule of law, the concept of the social market economy, a very European concept, and free movement of people, helped to bring peace, reconciliation, jobs, and wealth to Europe for decades. More recently, it played a crucial role in helping us to build peace in Ireland, to protect our reconciliation and defend our prosperity. We believe in the principles of the European Union because we in Ireland know firsthand the value of European unity, sweeping away so many of the differences between North and South, and also helping us to chart a more independent path in a much more multipolar world. So I think it's right that the theme today is about moving beyond Brexit, because we should not let Brexit define us or define Europe. Yes, it is defining the United Kingdom, and probably will for the next few decades. But we are in control of our destiny, and we must decide how we want to shape it. And I believe there are lessons that Europe can draw from recent events. First, one of the learnings from Brexit should be that working together, as we did in the past, allows us to solve some of the most intractable problems. We can manage the further enlargement of the European Union, migration, the negotiation of an EU budget, and also the challenges and opportunities that arise from climate action. Second, in the past 3 years, I think it's been demonstrated that the European Union is a union of nations as well as a union of people, one in which small states are respected and protected. And I know some people doubted that, but our experience of the past few years is otherwise. We've also seen how we can achieve much more when member states, all 27, think and act together with common objectives. And we also know the consequences when we fail to do that when it comes to so many other questions. Europe acting together can be a truly powerful force for good. And this is something that we can and should take forward into future negotiations, and also as we manage other issues, our relations with the United States, with China, Russia, and our neighbours in the Middle East and Africa. Third, I think we need to become much, much better at telling the story of the strength of European unity and how it benefits us all, and also how it will help us to face transnational issues where we need to think and act together. And I very much reflected on this only a week or two ago when I rushed to Brussels shortly after my resignation to attend a meeting of the European Council to deal with the multi-annual financial framework. And for the first time I was there as an Irish Taoiseach, engaging in those negotiations as a net contributor, something no one had ever done before. And it shows the enormous economic progress that our country has made, that we'll now contribute more into the European budget than comes out. I was confronted, of course, with disagreements with the frugal four, as they're described, the 4 countries that want to reduce the European budget, countries that have always been net contributors from day one. And I kind of vowed to myself that whatever role in politics I may have in the future, it's to avoid us ever getting into that idea, that this is a simple accounting exercise, the amount that you pay into the European budget in contributions, and then what comes out from the Common Agricultural Policy, from Horizon and everything else. Because we need to continue to inform our public and our electorate about the value of European membership, about the value of being in the European Union, the security guarantee, the guarantee of democracy and the rule of law, the guarantee of European citizenship, free movement across 27 countries, and of course access to that single market. And if you think of that difference between our contributions and what we receive from the European Union, that delta, if you like, that's our membership contribution. And it's a steal. It's really cheap if you think about what we get back from the European Union for the amount that we contribute. And it's a pity, I think, in some ways, that it was never seen that way in the United Kingdom, at least not in the last 30 years, and isn't seen that way in a lot of other European countries too, where politicians have to go home and argue that it was a success in some way to confine the European budget, which of course it isn't, because we need that budget to confront our transnational challenges. And it is a small price to pay for the enormous intangible benefits that we gain from the EU. I think we'll also need to tell the story of Europe a little bit better when it comes to facing down the spectre of populism. We need to be better representing and defending what we do, because otherwise the narrative will be shaped against against us by others. Those very easy, simple slogans that we hear far too often, and now increasingly in Ireland, about the people against elites and against the establishment. So we need to become better as well at simply presenting the real news. My vision for the future of Europe is one that's very much based on values. It means a free trade policy that champions growth while protecting the vulnerable and standards and human rights and the environment, strengthening the Eurozone and deeper fiscal cooperation, ensuring that European economies are competitive in what is an increasingly multipolar world. This means completing the single market in all of its aspects, including in services. It means future enlargement into the Western Balkans, so that people in the Western Balkans, in countries like Albania and Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina and others, can have a European perspective and a European future. And it is a great concern that I have, is that if we here in Western Europe and other parts of Europe turn our backs on Macedonia and Albania and young people in those countries, that they may well turn elsewhere. And there are other forces in the world, particularly non-European forces, that would be very keen to exploit exactly that, and indeed are doing so already. It also means ensuring that Europe becomes a leader in the digital economy, so we can meet the social and economic challenges posed by digital transformation. It means enhancing European citizenship and social Europe with common minimum and rising standards when it comes to workers' rights, environmental protection, social protection, and health and safety. And I think we often talk in European terms about a level playing field, but one of the beauties of the European Union is that it's not just a level playing field, it's a rising playing field. It's not one that seeks to set minimum standards across the European Union, but common rising standards across the European Union, and that should continue as well. It also means taking a role on big issues of the day, such as climate action and sustainability, and encouraging others to scale up their short-term and long-term ambition under the Paris Agreement, becoming the early adopter and indeed the inventors of the new technologies that will allow us to become a carbon-neutral society. The momentum is there, I think, very much with President von der Leyen, but she needs to be supported, and we need to drive it forward. On shared security, issues such as terrorism, for example, I believe we need to work more effectively together to build peace and security within Europe and on our border, and also in our neighbourhood. We need to better protect our societies from malicious cyber activities, hybrid threats, and disinformation, an effective new form of warfare. Of course, to achieve this more perfect union, we need the budget that is equal to the task. An agreement on the multi-annual financial framework, the EU's new 7-year budget, is the next step. As I mentioned earlier, this is proving very difficult and will require further dialogue across the European Union. At almost every European summit that I've attended for the past 3 years, we sign off on a communiqué where we very wordily call for more action and deeper cooperation and greater ambition on whatever issue was the issue of the day. But this is not sincere if European governments don't back it up with the budget adequate to do this. So the Union needs a budget that continues to fund well successful programmes like CAP and also cohesion, reformed and refocused on the challenges of the future, including climate action and biodiversity. And the same goes for Erasmus and Horizon and also Interreg. And I'm also keen to secure a €1 billion Peace Plus package for Northern Ireland and for the border counties. And we're very much on our way to doing that. So I think the world should not be divided into dreamers and realists. Rather, it's driven forward by dreamers and realists who believe in creating a brighter future. And I think one of the strengths of the Hist is that it brings together dreamers and realists, students as well as invited guests. So together, let us imagine the future of Europe. 30 years ago, when Nelson Mandela was released, when Germany was reunified and communism fell and the World Wide Web was invented, we saw that nobody could set the boundary on freedom or on progress or on democracy or on technological development. And I think in the next 30 years, we need to continue on exactly that same march. Europe has the potential to be a force for greatness in the years ahead, but only if we convince people that we're acting in their interest, that we are accountable, that we're stronger today, and that our strength comes in being united in our actions driven by our values. The post-war generation of my parents instinctively knew that the European Union and united Europe was a good idea because they saw how it brought an end to war on our continent, saw how it brought about the rule of law and prosperity after the horrors of 2 world wars which savaged Europe. And my generation, as we grew up, watching the Berlin Wall fall, watching Germany be united, watching the first free elections in Central and Eastern Europe, we understood that the European Union was a powerful force that gave people of our generation hope and aspiration on the other side of the Iron Curtain. We saw how the European Union could defeat communism, bring democracy, freedom, and economic opportunity to millions in Central and Eastern Europe. But I'm very conscious today that for today's young people, for people who are students in this college now, the horrors of World War and the evils of fascism and communism are not in their memory. And those forces are starting to stir again in Europe. And for them, I think Europe needs a new project, a new raison d'etre. And I believe dealing with the challenges that can only be overcome by collective multilateral action must be that raison d'etre, with climate action first among them, but of course other issues like security, migration, and the regulation of large corporations and markets, many of which now dwarf member states. And also making sure that the European values on which our union is founded are sustained and protected as global economic, military, and political power shifts south and eastwards. The European Union, with Ireland playing its part, succeeded in bringing peace and prosperity to a continent. It created the circumstances for economic growth and enormous opportunities, and it brought freedom to all of our people, individual, economic, and political. So let's drive to the next stage of an ever more united, inclusive, and prosperous union, a much better union. Thank you very much, and I look forward to other contributions.